Hello and welcome to another episode of Frame and Reference. I'm your host, Kenny McMillan, and you're listening to episode 152 with Bradford Lipson, DP of Prom Dates. Enjoy. Ostensibly, it's all about cinematography, but sometimes not
you
so
veer
much.
off course.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially, I'm all over the place. Actually, I did. It's been an ongoing theme on accident, but I had Larry Fong on ostensibly to talk about magic because he and I are both magicians. And then Marcus Forder was on, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I was a magician too." And then I just read an interview with you that you were also a magician when you were younger.
And still am. I actually am a Magic Castle member.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hell yeah!
Are you a Magic Castle member?
No, but I have shot for a bunch of magicians there, so I have an open invite which I abuse quite often. But yeah, a lot of the magicians have been like, "Oh, you should just like join." And for the longest time, I was always talking like I didn't really have like a routine, like I didn't have a character to build around the tricks that I do know. And
right.
Pretty much everyone was like, "Yeah, that doesn't really matter for the tryout. Like, do the tryout and then figure that part out later."
Yeah, I think you probably could. I think that as long as you have a routine, I know that throughout time, the Magic Castle changes their requirements, their auditioning requirements. So at the time when I was joining, it was just come in and perform 3 tricks. But because I performed way earlier in my life and did performances with routines, I was like, this doesn't feel right to come in and do trick 1, trick 2, trick 3. So I like cobbled together what I was going to do and to be ready for the audition. And really, like, this is what's really funny. So I signed up. I took refresher classes with Mark Wilson, who was kind of one of my childhood heroes, if you can believe it. So like to sit with him in a classroom and chat with him and hear his stories, with him on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Like, it was awesome. But anyway, I kind of was brushing up on magic, and then he sponsored me, and I signed up, and they said, well, it's about a 6-month waiting period for the audition. And so I was like, okay, no problem. And I kind of had in my head, I think I know what I want to do, blah, blah, blah. And they like casually just said, and you can also you can just sign up. Like if somebody cancels, we can call you. And so I was like, okay, yeah, put me on that list. Well, I was getting ready to go down to New Orleans to be the rotating DP on Astronaut Wives Club. It's like 3 or 4 days before I was leaving, the Magic Castle calls me. It was like a Monday, and they're like, hey, come on down tonight. We have an opening. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not really prepared. But I basically just threw all my stuff in my childhood magic case,
right,
and kind of was like, okay, I'm going to wing it. But I mean, I knew the 3 tricks that I wanted to do, and I knew how I could kind of tie it all together. So that wasn't really the problem, but I just really hadn't practiced it much. And so my whole presentation was that in my performance was that, hey, my mom called me to tell me she was cleaning out the closet and she found this old magic case, and here it is. And she, like, do you want it? Come over and get it. And I figured you'd want it. And so I set it down on the table, and I click open the little latches, and I open them, and I go, now you all know what it's like when you open something from your childhood and all these memories come rushing in. So that was my routine.
That's a great setup. Yeah.
And I'm like pulling out, I put a bunch of props in there from my childhood, real stuff from my childhood magic days. And one of the things I put in there was this ridiculous, it was like this cheap little plastic frame with a newspaper cutout of Harry Blackstone Jr. and his wife coming to Denver to perform. And I had gotten their autographs. And so I had their autographs in there, him and Gabe Blackstone in this thing. And I like, oh, like, here's one of my favorites. And I pull it out and I'm showing it to him. And all the whole auditioning committee is like this. and I walk around the table to be like right in front of them. And I go, guys, I'm not making this up. This is real. And this older woman in the front row grabs my hand and pulls the picture to her, and she says, "I know that's real because that's my autograph. It was Gay Blackstone."
That's incredible. That's awesome.
And then I was nervous after that because
Right. Yeah. She fucked up your whole thing.
anyway, so that's my audition to the Magic Castle.
That's pretty good. Yeah. I've had to stop just doing table shuffles under the mic because I'll go back and review like the audio. I'm like, you can just hear like,
Yeah. So card magic, we'll have to exchange information and meet sometime. Card magic, I struggle with. I used to be okay with it. I've worked coins for such that I'm like really adept with coins, but I like kind of all over the place with cards.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll definitely have to trade. Coin magic is one of those because like carrying a deck of cards on you is kind of can be a little antiquated depending on the group you're with. You know, if you're at a bar or whatever. Like,
Hey,
but like, you know, even a big like I have a pretty cool a few of them actually like these Liberty Head dollars
Mhm.
and those you know, having one, yeah, this is a lucky coin and then going for it. I feel like that's more acceptable, you know, to people.
It is, but even coins are like, like I'll pull out a coin for younger people and they'll be like,
Yeah, what's that? Yeah.
"Where did you get your liberties?" Because I have been trying to get some liberties for a new routine.
eBay. But I have, let's see here. They're not, it feels weird because they come in like, you know, plastic case, but I got
It's new.
two of these and I got one more that I actually carry around with me. They're all from 22 and 23. But it's just one of the prettier coin, like the Liberty Head. I think we just need to bring that back with the spiky crown.
Yes. Do you know Danny Goldsmith or no? Danny Goldsmith.
Yeah, I bought last winter. This is so stupid. So last winter I was in France running a ski trip for what was it, like Yale Business Club and Harvard Business Club. And so I'm in France and I'm talking about being a magician and I didn't have any cards with me. So I go on Danny's website and I download a few of his tricks and I'm like sitting there practicing them and I couldn't get any because he is one of the cleanest coin magicians I've ever seen in my life. Like he actually is doing magic. And yeah, couldn't get him down in time to entertain anyone.
Yeah, his routines are really his sleights are really involved. So like just recently, maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I paid for one of his routines because I kept popping up on my feed, and I was like, how the hell is he doing this? And so I bought it and I started trying it, and he recommends the Liberties, and I have like a bunch of the 50-cent pieces, you know, I have both the what are they, the walking what are they, the oh my gosh, the older coins. It's not a Liberty, it's I'll have to remember.
The like big ones.
It's a 50-cent piece, but it's not. I have both the Kennedy halves, but there's then another one that is really nice. I want to say Walking Liberty. Does that make sense?
I just got those because I really liked to be perfectly honest, it's the coin that Two-Face has in the Tim Burton Batmans. And so I just wanted one. And then I bought three.
So I reached out to, do you know Roy Cooper, who Roy Cooper is?
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah, he's in Vegas and he manufactures all like the shells.
Got it.
And all of those things. And so I had reached out to him to ask if I want like a matching set of Liberty. And then I hadn't really followed through with him. So I don't know whatever came of it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think I picked them up for like $30 a pop. They weren't like too grand. I got them like 5-6 years ago, but they weren't terribly expensive. But it does feel, like I said, it does feel weird getting them like they're in like a plastic shell, you know, they're all shiny. And then you're like, get out of there. I'm going to use this.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Roy Cooper has a routine on his site that I don't know if you ever mess with, any gimmicks, but
I mean, I used scotch and soda for a decade. That was just easy to carry on me all the time.
Right. I spent mine once, unfortunately.
Oh, Oops. I always
Here's
I
I
always
have.
flick them just because you can hear the dead one. So I'd
Yeah.
always be like, all right, so don't not that one.
I was not smart enough to do that. I'm trying to think what the name of his route, what this routine is. I'm blanking. My magic's just right there.
Oh,
I'll get it. I'll get in a little bit. I
sure.
can, but it's this. It's an amazing routine where it's basically a matrix that you just use your hands,
Hmm.
make the
Instead
coins
of
jump
putting
around.
cards over them.
Yep, and
Yeah.
it's awesome. It's one of my favorites. So I highly, if you like coin magic, I look into that. It's really fun. People just go, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah.
Because the beauty is you get to raise. There's moments where you can raise both hands when you're doing it, and people are going to think that you're covering something up, but then you raise your hands and they're like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
And then you keep doing it, and it's like, "Oh my God, how is he doing this?"
Yeah. Did you
It's
see?
really fun.
I'll definitely have to. I took a note here because I've always wanted to get more into coin magic because it just feels more carryable, you know. But also that reminds me, I was at. Nope, that thought's gone. Oh, did you see? It was like 2 years ago. Mark Kobe's like was it Fisdom winning card
I did
performance.
not.
It's look it up. It's fantastic because he just plays like a schlub. So he's like it's incredibly messy and great. But there's because he's doing it for like all magicians. He has a few fake out when you're talking about being able to like lift your hands and showing it. He has one where it's one of the best slides I've ever seen where it's like he goes like that and then as a joke is like holding his chin and is like pick a card and they pick it and he goes, "Do you want to switch?" And they've already got it in their hands and everyone's just like, "Come on, give me a break." Like,
Right, right. That's awesome. I'll have to look it up.
yeah, his name's Mark Kobe. He's a French dude. Um,
Do you go to Magic Live or any
no,
of
pretty much
the
just the castle. There's a uh theater over here in Santa Monica that I'll pop into every once in a while. But
well, I mean like the big convention like Magic
oh
Live.
no, I've never been.
Yeah, I haven't I might be going this August if I can.
Oh,
If
where's that at?
it's
Vegas.
in Vegas, it's
Yeah,
huge.
write that down. Maybe I can go to that.
I I went to my first Magic convention a few months ago. It must have been January in San Diego for it's the West Coast. They call it the IBM such and such West
Mm-hmm.
Coast or Western half the United States. And it was rather interesting. It was an eye-opening experience for me because I didn't expect like it was mostly retired
Mm-hmm.
people.
Yeah, that is one thing that's kind of so. I actually a few. I don't know if you were there, but like 2 weeks ago, when Richard Turner was at the castle.
I've seen him up quite a few times. Yeah. I
Yeah,
didn't
that
see
was
him last time, but he's impeccable.
yeah, that was because my sister goes with me all the time, and it was funny because she's seen enough magic to kind of know like at least where things are headed, not how it's done, but kind of sometimes you'll see repetitions. And she just when she left, I was like, how the fuck like how does he know where anything is at? I'm like, he practices for 12 hours a day for 60 years. Like that's just
Yeah.
what that looks like.
Right. That's exactly right. And that's my big problem is Kenny, I just don't practice.
I mean, same.
And and I go through these weird spurts. Like I'll practice really heavily and then other things come up, work stuff and whatever. And then it's like I should really just even if it's a half hour a day, but I just like put it aside and then I have to kind of it's not starting over. Some of it's like riding a bike.
Yeah.
I learned the hanging coins.
Mm-hmm.
That's I don't know if you know that
Yep.
routine.
Yeah.
And I learned that a while back, and I pretty much am to the point now where when I do it, I could almost I could maybe just practice a little bit, but you get that muscle memory going enough, then it's like okay, I kind of have it
Yeah.
anyway.
That is the one nice thing about card magic is like you can be watching a TV show and kind of just at least
Yeah,
practicing palm shifts or air shuffles, whatever the hell. It's a very therapeutic. It's the original fidget spinner.
right. And it's the same thing with coins.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing with coins. So I should be doing it more with cards now, though.
It's a fun. I've got over here, this whole upper section is, I think it's like 60 decks. So you can have some of mine if you need any new ones.
I
Um,
kind of have the same thing. I have like a little practice area with cards and all the junk throughout the years.
that's
If I would
rad.
be into me, let's see, I don't know if I can bring it over my some of my old magic.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's well, I don't know why I leaned like this. That's stupid. Like, let me get around the iPad. Um, all right. Well, I guess that's the end of the podcast. No. Um, when I looked that up, I saw something that didn't occur to me at the time because I remembered and then forgot because it's been a while. Um, and it's roughly more gear talk, but you shot Wilfred on DSLRs
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't look like that. It looks, like any, I mean, obviously at the time, the shallow depth of, your 5D D800 look was unique. But nowadays, it would be kind of commonplace to shoot something on a mirrorless or a DSLR roughly. Same thing on like House. I know you worked on House. They did that one famous episode on the 5D. Um,
Right.
and I was wondering for like newer people listening, what were the challenges of shooting a show on like a D800 versus now, like what upgrades have made those irrelevant now? What unique challenges were on that show?
Okay, so it's funny that you say this because last night I was at a dinner with Otto Nimitz
Oh.
and many other DPs, and we were talking about this.
Mm.
We were about just this, and so the 5D and the D800 back then, I think what the two biggest challenges they were, I think the 5D was 8-bit. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Sounds right.
And,
Unless you had
and
Magic Lantern.
yeah, and I think the other part was the dynamic range wasn't that great.
Mm.
So it was challenging on that show in particular because we shot both directions at the same time. We basically had three cameras going. So we'd shoot a master and overs at the same time. So if you're at the front door on season one, we were on 5Ds, and when we were at the front door of uh, what was the main character's name? Not
Elijah Wood.
well, yeah, Elijah Wood. Right?
I don't remember the character's name.
But anyway, we'd be at the front door, and one camera would be shooting out, the other camera would be shooting in. So the camera shooting in, I had to do the opposite of whatever I was doing shooting out. Like I would have a 4K Chimera, to shoot towards the outside on
Right.
whoever we were shooting, and flagging that all off the actor in the doorway, and then shooting into the house. I had to kind of like almost take away light from out. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
bizarre, kind of like
You had to
way.
design the gradient between outside and inside.
Yeah, yeah. And then season two, I believe we went on to stage, and then in season three, so it kind of made parts of that easier. Although we'd always shoot the out, obviously on location. So,
Right.
but it took away some of that issue. But I think it was just the 8-bit aspect and the dynamic range were the two biggest parts of where that was challenging to make the lighting work, and like, okay, how can I make it look like there's a lot of latitude when there really isn't? And how can I stretch it as much as I can, and hold the highlights, and hold the blacks and all of that just kind of was, I think, its biggest challenge at the time. And then I'd say the next biggest challenge was just, and it got better through trial and error, but it was still always kind of hard, is like, they're DSLRs and they're not production cameras. They'd overheat, and matte box would fall off in the middle of a shot, and just kind of like, or the focus motor would disengage, and
Just slide right off.
yeah, and it's just, I just remember stuff like that was kind of
Because there weren't cages for these cameras back
I
then.
don't no, it was the very beginning of that, so it was kind of like, okay, how do we do this? So it was a learning process for sure. And then over time, it just kind of worked out. And then I left, I think, season 3 or something, and went on to do other things.
Yeah, because when I think about, because that wasn't terribly long ago, but for younger people getting into this, that might as well have been the Stone Age, you know. But I remember in college, you know, the 5D coming out, college for me, the 5D coming out and kicking the DVX 100 to the curb. But my film school, like, we all had to fight over the one, otherwise you're shooting on DV. But yeah, I think it had like what, 8 stops of dynamic range or something like that.
Yep, that was about it. And you know, the crazy thing is I won an ASC award on that.
Nice. Hell yeah. What was it? Was the reasoning just because it was allowing you to really selectively choose your depth of field? Because I know like the show is ostensibly in Elijah's character's head the whole time, but like were there any other
that was really the
yeah.
No, I think it was like it allowed and I didn't do the pilot. So, you know, and so this choice was made by the show creators and showrunner and everybody. They made the choice because they liked that look. And I think it was a good choice. I think it was the right choice for that show. So it worked. And now you could turn around and go out and have, you know, you could do that on almost any camera now. You could go full frame and get that same vibe.
Yeah. What was the D800 offering you that the 5D didn't? Because nowadays, especially Nikon, you know, their Z series is the Z8C9 insanely good, but for video, most people don't think Nikon. I had a D90, which was 720, maybe 6 stops of dynamic range and jello like that, you know?
Right. That jello effect was another thing we had to be careful about. Kind of when you pan back and forth. I would say, if I remember correctly, it was really just that the HDMI port allowed for us to see full HD.
Oh, yeah.
That was the reason.
Yeah, so you could actually monitor it correctly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other than that, I think they were pretty much neck and neck.
Sure. Yeah, that's
and,
fascinating.
And when I won that award, I think Nikon didn't really, you know, they didn't really care. They didn't like, okay, whatever. They didn't see the relevance, and it's not their niche, you know. They didn't set out to get into Hollywood as a production camera.
Yeah, well, and it's funny too because when they released the D90, they didn't even mention it. It released at 24p, and then they were like, "Hey, you can use this for news gathering." And I was like, wait a minute, like 5D came out at 30 and they're like, come on, make a film with it. You know, they had Vincent Lafayette out here, like making tons of videos, and Nikon just went, that's a feature. Have fun. You know?
Right. Yeah. No, it's interesting how they responded to that. I remember it was like, they came to the award ceremony. It was kind of like, you know, shook hands and congratulations and laughed. And I think we did one on their website. We did one interview and they left it at that. And that was it.
Well, now they bought Red, so they figured it out.
Now they're in.
Yeah.
I just realized I had forgotten about that.
Really? Yeah. That's they did it. I think they bought it for like 85 million.
Wow.
Like that was shocking. I thought it would be in the upper triples, but like. Right. Now it makes sense why they were kind of like operating on a shoestring, or like, you know, just everything that kind of came about that company was they needed to get bailed out.
Wow. I did not realize that.
Yeah. They just released that number like maybe like 2 weeks ago. But I'm excited. I think that's a good acquisition for both companies.
Absolutely.
I did want to know, you know, I was not a office person. Most people are. I just can't, like anything very long, I fall off immediately, you know? But I did want to know, you know, you gaffed, 56 episodes of The Office. What's the difference in a show that is ostensibly not lit, you know, quote unquote, not lit? I was wondering if you could run through maybe similarities and differences between gaffing a show like The Office versus House, which similarly, quote unquote, not lit, but a little more dramatic looking. And, you know, like Without a Trace, which is probably on the further side of that dramatism.
Right. Oh my gosh, you're really reaching back. So, all, you know, the whole not lit, but obviously they all are. It's more about how they were shot. So, and what the requirements are because of how the execution of the show is done. So The Office was 2 cameras handheld, a lot of moving around. Cinema Verite, obviously, the documentary crew is always there.
Yeah.
And so the lighting requirements had to be such that it allowed for that. So really the lighting of like the office set itself was really just all practical. It was like fluorescence, and we could control them. We had everything ran to a breaker panel, so I
Right.
could turn off any fluorescent at any. It's funny to think about now. I just have to say this because now it'd be like you'd have a stairs in there, and you could really,
iPad.
oh my God, you could just like really go to town. But which is I'm sure how they'll do it on the reboot. But we did what we had with the tech. We did what we could with the technology at hand. So
Yeah.
basically, I could like turn off a fluorescent really quickly if I had to, or a group of them. I also made these. I made these weird uh, uh, contraptions out of foam core that were like a triangle, white on the inside, and then mylar, and basically you could just it. How do I describe it? It was basically like a slanted triangle,
Okay.
and the one small part of the triangle was open, and we could put diffusion on that. And basically, I could clip that to the fluorescent. Basically, the fluorescent would bounce into that mylar and shoot the light out.
Wow,
So
that's smart.
yeah, so the key grip we had like 4 or 5 of them. So the key grip could just like we could put them on one whole row. So if Steve was walking down, you know, between the desks, all that light that was off camera, not working for us, we could just aim that towards him, so he didn't have all that top light.
That's so smart. So they're basically like little clippable zip lights, essentially,
Huh.
or like
Yeah.
zip modifier. I don't know what you would call that.
Yeah, it was just this. I don't know. Came up with that as asked the key grip like let's try it. Let's see if it works. And we're like, okay, well, we have nothing to lose. And we're like, yeah, this works great.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a fun thing. And we so I'm getting off topic, but
Like
basically,
I said, that's this podcast.
yeah. So ultimately, and I came up with a few other contraptions that went on to serve the production well after I left, from what I understand. But ultimately that show had to look like, and it was the mantra of the show was it's a documentary, so it shouldn't really look any more than it should. Does that make sense? Like, it shouldn't look great. It shouldn't it should just look like it should look.
Yeah.
And so ostensibly, I've always felt like if I was making something look too good, then we were getting out of the realm of what the show was.
Yeah.
So there were times when I know we would purposely, like if we were on a location, like in a townhome or something, we'd push the practicals to be a little brighter than I would if I was doing like a 1 hour drama or another, or even a half-hour narrative. Like if I was doing something where it was just more controlled, I would bring those down into a realm that looked more controlled. But part of that is when the door opens and the camera goes in, it's like it would just be whatever it is. So if you made them just a little brighter than they should be, then it kind of sold that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how that was, and compared to like a show like House or Without a Trace, which was clearly needed to be dramatized, and the lighting needed to help. It needed to be part of that storytelling.
Yeah.
So yes, well, of course we had sets and had to make the sets look like the hospital a real place, or the bullpen for Without a Trace a real place. But how can we also make it dramatic looking?
Yeah, because like I always think of shows like I was just talking to DP of no. Well, in any case, I was talking to someone about CSI, how there's like that's on the extreme end where it's like there is no way an investigative body would be like, yeah, let's just do this with the lights off. So let me just look. I need to look inside the microscope, turn off everything, and put some blinkies in the background. I need more blinkies.
Right. And highly stylized. That's what those shows are. They're like putting objects in the foreground to dolly through. Whether glass bits that refract light and that just look really cool going through, or the old trick C-stand arms, and you just being a light on them and you just go through them, you can't tell what it is. It just looks like, it just looks like, eye candy that you're going through.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things, every show has its needs. So, um, yeah, that's kind of the big difference between a show like The Office and where it had that definite cameras had to have the ability to move around with the actors whatever we were doing. We rarely put lights on the floor on stands.
And did that make your job easier or harder?
Neither. I mean, it just comes with the territory.
Sure.
It's like as a gaffer, I did a lot of shows where this was back in the day where you used green beds and had a lot of lights ringing the set.
Yeah.
That wasn't uncommon. And so I suppose The Office, it wasn't like it was just okay, how do we take this on? It wasn't really a question of harder or not. It was just a different way of doing it. And the Key Grip he came up with this whole, he had NDs and bobbinet with magnets. And then, we could if one of the actors we had to have a fluorescent light on for whatever reason, or we could just harness it. We could always make it less where they were, or less if it was offensive on somebody's head or something in the background, but we weren't seeing it on camera.
Yeah.
We wanted light back there. We could just very quickly just slap something up and control it that way. So we had a lot of up our sleeve.
Yeah, I was gonna say that just those two little tricks alone are I could see anyone using that in an actual, I get sent to do corporate testimonials a lot. And I might steal both because obviously the false ceiling gives you the little metal things where you could attach the magnets, or oftentimes I'll use a little scissor.
Mm-hmm.
Scissor. Yeah, a little peggy. But yeah, just having a magnetic ND that you can go that's pretty good.
Yeah, it was great. Those were truly good. And then I think one of the other things I came up with partway through is we used a lot of, my God, the Kino flows. They were the little rectangular, not like just the tube ones. They were oh my gosh, this is just so bad.
The Dita lights?
Not Dita lights. Go back a little more.
The celebs?
Celebs.
Yeah.
Celebs. And so we started using celebs to key certain spots. And we wanted to leave the room for the DP and the camera operators to be able to we didn't want them hanging down. So I made these, I went to Home Depot on a weekend one day and I bought a bunch of PVC pipe and I built these telescoping contraptions that were basically like a U, and then with feet, and I filled the feet with sand.
Yeah.
And basically, you just have it collapse and then lift a ceiling tile, put it up, expand it, lock it, hang the light on it, and safety it to something up in there, and you're off to the races. It took a minute and a half to put up.
That's so smart. Yeah, that I feel like a lot of DPs who spend a lot of time gaffing probably have the most efficient ideas for any given setup. Otherwise, I feel like if you go straight DP your whole career, you think oh, I need a 12 by over here and put as much light, and say, well, what if I just put that up,
Right.
Just make a pipe.
I think there's also I think it's twofold. They fortunately got to work with a lot of wonderful DPs when I was gaffing. So the good part is that you also are absorbing and learning a lot from DPs who know how to light and that are good. And you walk away, I call it my bag of tricks.
Your briefcase of tricks.
Yeah. So they just keep expanding, and there's that. And then you create your own, because like you say, as a gaffer, it's trying to find ways to be creative, whether it's out of efficiency or out of just pure necessity, or, hey, I just want to try something new and different. Any one of those things, or all of them, you begin to experiment, and then you go, okay, this worked, this didn't work. And you just find those things and add on to your repertoire.
Yeah. Yeah. Were there any DPs who kind of you could consider like a mentorship role that helped you out when you were kind of transitioning?
Sure, absolutely. Like David Stockton would be one of phenomenal. And I did a lot of work with Eagleson. I don't know if you know Eagle.
No, but that's a great name.
Yeah, he's from Iceland.
Uh,
Yeah, he directs now. He's not shooting anymore, from what I we keep in touch, but I don't think he's. I think he's just directing.
yeah.
So super talented. People like that. Quite a few. John Peters was a guy I worked with a lot back in my younger gaffing days. He was originally from England. Really talented person who. What I loved about working with John is he challenged us all the time.
Mm.
And he always enjoyed, like, let's not try to light the set the same way every time.
Mm.
It was fun because it's like, oh, okay, it keeps you on your toes. Because, on a TV series, it's really easy to fall into that.
Right.
But when you work with somebody, it's like, let's try it like this time.
Yeah.
And oh, okay, that sounds like that would be really fun. And so I think things like opportunities like that really help you expand as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I had seen when you were talking about in the dark with someone that you kind of habitually have a polarizer in front of the lens, at least for that show.
Yeah, on a lot of shows I'll do this with just like a one stop. If it's a productive one stop polarizer, sometimes you buy when you get them, they're just like you can spin them and spin them and spin them, and they if it's just depending on the manufacturer,
Right.
you really get anything out of it. But I do often do that, or I don't necessarily keep it on for every shot, but if I go into coverage and there's a shine on an actor's face, I can spin it and usually get the shine out.
Yeah.
And then add your diffusion, and it's helpful. So that's mostly what it's for. Certainly, sometimes there's unwanted reflections on other things
Yeah.
that are distracting, and we use them for that. And now you could probably, I haven't really tried it, but I could probably just use a two stop and not really ever worry about it now with the way cameras are.
Yeah. Just in terms of the sensitivity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was talking to my friend Johnny Durango, another DP, and he had mentioned he does the same thing. It's just like always on polarizer. And I don't know why, but the handful of times I must have just potentially been using a shitty one, but like I felt like it affected the image too much. Granted, I don't know what the stop rating was, but he's like, yeah, you just it's for killing shine on actors. And I was like, that's so smart. And I don't know why I only thought of it as using it for reflections and always thought that the skin of people, like I always thought it looked too matte for my tastes. But are you saying that how do you light for that potentially? Because obviously it'll the contrast ratio might change by spinning that thing around.
I don't really ever feel like the contrast ratio changes.
I just mean like the highlight, if you kill that highlight.
Yes, but usually it's an unwanted highlight. So then it's obviously.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So then clearly, you're trying to light. It really depends on what it's for. And so like if I'm lighting something dramatic and somebody has like, say, a shine here I can't seem to get rid of, but I still like the half light, but this is maybe coming from something in some other place, or they're picking or something up under their eye.
Right.
I can spin it and get it, but it'll still, you can still, you're right. Maybe you have to push the key light a little bit stronger.
Right.
If it takes too much away, but I find I usually don't have that problem.
That's rad. Yeah, the only reason I'm pushing you on it is like I got to start. This is one of those little bag of tricks things. I'm like I should probably start doing. This is a great little idea. Saves you some time too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I loved shooting in the dark. That was a really fun show to shoot.
Yeah, it looked. I haven't seen it, but when I was looking through like clips and stills and stuff, it looked very, very pretty and dark.
Thank you. Yeah, it was the content allowed for that, and the show creator was great about like let's push this more and change the look up a little bit season to season, and just when the story the story itself just needed that as the main character and her friends were going down this rabbit hole. So yeah, it was fun. It was great to do. And I did a lot of, because the main character is blind, I did a lot of like wide open, here you go. I shot on the light Summilux C lenses. So
Oh, those are good.
wide open,
1.4 or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
wide open on her. And to give like her world is, you know, falling away around her.
Right.
And then I did a deeper stop for everybody else. And it was subtle, but it was kind of a cool thing. We kind of had like a little rule book of things to do, and rule book's not the wrong, like a Bible of
Guidebook.
guidebook of like, hey, these are when we're into this, let's do this, let's do that. And I did a lot of wide angle close-ups as well, which was really interesting. And then I would use the macro lux, which is basically a diopter made by lights. And I would, so instead of using a diopter to try to focus on something close, normally how people use diopters, I would use it kind of in the opposite. I would put it on and then focus on Murphy, the main character, and then everything else would go really crazy out of focus. Yeah, like this much depth of field on her. So it was like my focus pullers. Which eye, Brad? Which eye?
Yeah.
But it really kind of made, and I didn't do that all the time, but there were sequences where that really made sense when she was really in her own head, or when she was going into a flashback. When in her mind she was going to go into a flashback, we would do that effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you shot that on Venice?
Yeah, sunny Venice.
With the Cinemalux. I saw in reading about that you rated it for its higher ISO, but then dropped it down. Was that just to save on shadow detail? Like you're shooting at 800, but the camera was set to like 2500, or was that a different show?
No, that's that show. So 2500 would be the low light level ISO. And so when we were shooting clearly in low light, I set it for the 2500, but then incrementally I could bring down, you could go down in this, that would be the, how do I say this? That would be the main setting. And then you could incrementally come down from there to, like, if you had too much light.
I see.
But what I found is that if I went to 2500 and just use I ended up doing this most of the time, is like if I ended up just using NDs, that's what seemed to work best.
Yeah.
Because where the Venice, where they set the grayscale, when you go into that higher ISO for that low light level, it's just amazing how it opens up.
Yeah, sure.
Spectacular. So it really can lead you to a lot of creative. It can open the creative doors even more, I think. I don't know. I found it to be really awesome and fun to work with. So I'm trying to remember all the variables, because it's been a while since I shot that show. So I'm trying to remember all the things that you're saying.
Well, the only reason I wanted to bring it up is because a lot of times people with the Alexa will rate it at like 1600 because the grain structure looks kind of, quote unquote, grain structure looks kind of nice. But I hadn't really heard anyone kind of off speed the Venice, so it was just like a.
Yeah. And I think that I found that if you go up from 800, it just doesn't tend to hold up as well. I mean, it depends what you're doing. So
sure.
It's the right look, so I don't know.
Yeah. I saw just some terrible news about prom dates, which is that you were restricted from using twinkle lights a lot. That sucks. That sucks, man.
It was the director, Kim, who's absolutely awesome. I enjoyed every minute of working with her. She was the best. But when she first told me that, I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, no, they're just so overused. They're in every damn, adolescent movie. And she's
every
right.
Party scene. Yeah.
Every single party scene. And I enjoyed that challenge. But, she was open, like clearly, like, and this was obviously the production designer was really helpful and heavy-handed in this as well. But like that opening sequence when they're young and they sneak into the prom, and there was a lot of twinkle lights there, and that was she was fine with that. And then there was an overuse of twinkle lights in that
House
that
party.
yeah, at the front house,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, that really cool giant wall of twinkle lights, which
yeah.
was so awesome. So I think that, but I think overall, I kind of pick up on what she's saying. Like, let's find a different way to do it. Let's
Yeah.
find other things. And so I appreciated that and enjoyed the challenge, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, the thing I really liked about just the way you lit it was it's still like, first of all, it's been a while since like I hesitate to say raunchy comedy, but like they're few and far between these days. Like 2005, every other movie was kind of. But when I think of your kind of Will Ferrell type comedies, they were more lit, whatever, like The Office. They weren't necessarily that. Whereas this has a very stylized look while still looking very natural. And were you pretty much like just churching up practicals and using that, or and just maybe like one LED? Because I know you guys had kind of a slightly more limited budget. So like, how are you getting that really cinematic look with while still keeping everything both affordable and like practical based?
So I think it was a combination of things. I think part of it's the look that Kim was wanting to achieve with keeping it grounded and having it feel grounded and not over the top in any real way. And the production designer and her created a great lookbook that was a wonderful guide to go off of. So, like colors and just kind of the vibe of the whole film and where we were going, what we were going for. That's the base. And then from there, I would say, yes, we did a lot of practicals. And Julie Dreck, our production designer, our set decorator, was so wonderful because we would talk practicals and they would always and we would say, can we put one here? Can we put one? And we had to draw them out on the set plans. And she would have more than that. So I could always take stuff away. But the idea being that, yes, let's largely let practicals drive the light and then you augment as needed. And then, of course, completely clean it up in coverage. Yeah. So that's basically what we did. And I also think it's we use the Sigma Cine Primes.
Those are nice.
And they did a beautiful job. I was so pleased with those lenses. I just felt like they had a really nice look. I felt the contrast was nice. I thought the skin tones and colors looked really bang on, and they just had a really good vibe to them that was really pleasing. And I think the first time, I feel like it was maybe the first week we were shooting. It was all kind of starting to become a blur now, but we were in Jess's room where she's at the computer looking at she's watching a blog on makeup. And I just remember we had the camera behind the computer and the practicals and everything. And I went back to the monitor and I was like, oh, wow, this looks really nice. This has a really good vibe to it. And I at that moment really appreciated those lenses. So I think it was kind of a combination of it all. But yes, we used a lot of Astera Titans and Helios. I mean, it was the entire show was location except for the stripper room.
Right.
And so ultimately it was like putting in Asteras where we could and softening them. I had the gaffer put white, basically pool noodles on
The pool
them.
noodles are really popular right now. I've seen them everywhere.
Yeah, so that worked great. And we just did a lot of that kind of work. So figure out where the lighting could go, and then where the practicals can go, and go from there to augment the light. And clearly there was like the frat house, we very much wanted a particular look in there.
Yeah.
I used a lot of Asteras in there, out of frame, rigged up in the hallways and in various places. And so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
So were you primarily using the tubes to augment your practicals, or did you have like light mats or anything that were kind of also coming in?
I had both. I had some light gear
Yeah.
mats. I had some Kinos, I maybe Celebs.
The LED Kinos.
No, I think
Oh,
maybe
fluorescents.
what? God, I'm so embarrassed. This is terrible that I can't remember all
I
my
mean, this
lights.
was what you filmed this like a year ago. You're not supposed to
Year ago,
memorize
yeah.
everything.
So Matt Nardone, my gaffer, who's East Coast based, is an aficionado when it comes to all this LED technology. And so I relied heavily on him with like, I would say, here's what I want. Here's the outcome of what I want. And you would say, here's what I think we should do. And I do use the sky panels. So we had a set of sky panels that we were using off camera when, anytime we went into close-ups, I would, bring in a 4x diffusion with an A crate and I'd either run something through Magic Cloth or some heavy diffusion. I also like shower curtain.
Yeah.
I love how that actually puts a sheen on the face and it makes skin look healthy. So
Yeah.
I love that. Or I'll double it up. I'll have the diffusion and then I'll just do a wag flag of shower curtain, just out of frame. And so that kind of stuff, that's what we did a lot of.
I've literally started using just for speed's sake. Like I said, like doing these corporate interviews, I tend to do a lot of recently. Is just bringing I have a Vortex 4, and then I'll just T-bar literal shower curtain. And the guy that I work with every time, like the first time I did, he goes, "What is that?" And I was like, just trust me, it'll look good. Ignore the shower curtain and the cheap pole it's on that I got from Amazon. It'll look good.
I think Roscoe makes what they call shower curtain, and you can buy it. You can buy a roll of it, and then you can make your own wag flags with it or frames or whatever.
That's cool.
I grew up old school, so I call it shower curtain because that's what all the old timers called it. So
gotcha. Were you using the Sigma Classics or the regulars?
I used for the majority of the show, it was the regular Cine primes. And then for the beginning, we used the classics. The flashbacks when they're young was all classics.
Gotcha. Yeah, those look really pretty, but they can be flary.
Yeah. Oh, I loved it. I loved the way they looked. I wish more of it was in the movie.
Right. Sure. What let's see here. Talk about that. Oh, what made you go with the Sigmas as opposed to like sticking with the Leicas? Because the Cine Primes are fairly neutral, as are the Leicas. So was it just like a budget thing? Because they look, in my opinion, they look relatively close.
They do, and it was somewhat budget. It was somewhat a budget thing. I certainly was interested in trying them, and so it was a good opportunity to play with them and give it a go and see how I liked them.
Yeah, they're not. I love those things. I did want to know about your pre-production process because you had how many weeks for pre-production on this?
3.
So what were you doing? Sorry, try not to sneeze. What were you doing to kind of stay efficient in that process and make sure you got everything you needed?
Every damn thing we could.
Yeah.
So, well, to answer your question, so we had 3 weeks of prep in Syracuse, New York. Week before, Kim asked me if I'd be willing to jump on some Zooms or FaceTime, whatever they used, and look at locations. So basically, they would be the production designer and the location manager and the line producer and a couple other people. They would go to a location and they'd have the phone and Kim and I were still here in LA. So we'd be looking at it and it's like, hey, hold that. And we'd walk through the set with them and be like, this works, this doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. So we were able the week before to eliminate I think 3 or 4 locations that would have been a waste of time for us to go see while once we're boots on the ground in Syracuse. So that was really helpful. The other thing I did was Kim and I had a lot of discussions and going over the lookbook and just getting ourselves to the point that by the time we got to Syracuse, and we hit it day one going to look at locations and work, we could really just start diving in and talking about blocking and that kind of thing. So basically how it worked is we would pick our location and maybe see two or three locations in a day, whatever we had to do. And then Kim and I would go back and we would, with through Artemis, we would stand there and block it all out and take notes, and then go back to the office and I transfer everything over to, I use Shot Designer for just overheads.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just basically create, I just would import the whatever the plan was of whatever set we were doing, and I would basically create my setups until I had what I wanted, like setup one, setup two, setup three, and then that would list, our shots, and then I could decide if if we were gonna overdo it and we couldn't, like it would be impossible to make our day.
Right.
So and then her and I could sit down and go, okay, well, maybe we could get away with this shot turning into this instead, and we would just like work together, collaborate to get our shot list to a reasonable point. And then I could also attach photos from Artemis onto that, and I also had them on a Google Drive, and then like the gaffer and the key group, everybody could access all that.
Right.
And the first AD, I would send him everything like the day before we were shooting, I would send him a final shot list for the whatever it is we were shooting the next day, and they would distribute that. So basically, that's how we spent our prep. And I know Kim was stretched. It sounds easy for me, but I know Kim was stretched as the director in 1,000 different directions. I mean, she was dealing with, choreographing the banana dance and making a million different decisions and props and wardrobe and this, that, and the other. And so I tried as much as I could to help in any way I could, but there are just things that, the director has to decide on. But I tried to take as much responsibility for the blocking and helping with shot efficiency and working with the first AD on that as well. We had a really good rapport, and so that by the time we started shooting, we really knew what we were doing. Clearly with the gaffer and the key grip, so we did pretty damn good, I thought.
Yeah, just 3 weeks.
20 days of shooting.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's efficient. That's getting in and out of there.
Yeah.
That's fun. Talked about practicals. Talked about that. Trying to get through my notes before I got to let you go. Yeah, you talked about the tools. What else? Oh, you know what I could talk about, because I ask this at the beginning, but this might be a fun way to wrap it up. Have you been watching anything that you enjoyed recently?
Oh my gosh, let's see. We've been watching Outer Range.
That's a good one.
We just an older show that we just finished up was The Americans.
I watched like the first few episodes of that, and I was like, this is like when it came out, and I was like, this is cool, and then never got back to it. But that's like been on my list for a while, because I know that really hits.
We've been watching, let me see, what are the other ones? Palm Royale.
Sure.
We just finished that. Yeah, we seem to watch a lot of shows. We just started season 2 of Outer Range, but because we had finished season 1 recently, so we're like, let's get on that. Yeah. Gosh, you say this, and I'm like, what other shows have we watched? My wife would be like, come on, we watched this.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because a lot of times I'll ask DPs, like, if they're watching anything, and especially if they're on a job or about to, they're like, I can't look at one more screen. So the fact that you shoot TV and also are like, nope, I'm going to continue watching shows is like commendable, because that's, that's an investment in time.
It is an investment in time, but I like there's so much good television.
Yeah.
There, and I just love seeing everybody's work. And I just appreciate, we all know what it takes to get through a day, and we all know what it takes to do all this. And so when I watch shows and I see what they're doing, it's really fun for me. because I get to enjoy it on a different level. And so, yeah, I take away a lot from watching the shows, and I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. That's
Yeah.
why I'm feel like I'm trying to be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
If not just a cinematographer, but try to approach things as a filmmaker, not and try to have a wider view of things.
Yeah. Well, you just directed a short, didn't you?
I did. It'll be in Cine. It'll tomorrow. I'll be screening at Cinegear.
Oh, no shit. Okay.
It'll be the finals competition. So the all the screenings of everything is like 11:30 to 3:30, and then I think they said the short films are 2 to 3:30. And I don't know where in that block. Ours is a 20-minute film, so I don't know where in that block ours falls. But it'll be screening tomorrow.
Okay, cool. I'll definitely try to. Again, my coverage is pretty loosey goosey, so I can probably cut away for 20 minutes and find you guys.
Yeah. I'll be mostly at that theater tomorrow. I don't know how much I'm gonna get out. Saturday, I'm gonna really hit it hard.
Yeah, I feel like that's most people's plan. Friday's like, oh hey, and then Saturday everyone just pretty much parties.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for spending the time with me, man. I really appreciate it, and doesn't always happen that I learn quite a bit, but I actually learned quite a bit instead of just a bit.
I feel so honored.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me, and I'll look forward to meeting you in person, and maybe we can hit the castle together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production. It's produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan, and distributed by Pro Video Coalition. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can do so on Patreon by going to frameandrefpod.com, where you can get all the episodes, and clicking the Patreon button. It's always appreciated, and as always, thanks for listening.